Okay, so big news today, everyone. I was able to get early access to Comet, Perplexity's new LLM-based browser, and I was able to play around with it this morning and get some insights that SEOs can use as well as general users for how these LLM browsers might look, especially when OpenAI releases theirs, and especially when Google starts releasing more AI integration features into their web browsing. So when I open up Comet, you can actually see you're taken to this homepage. Basically, immediately you are in the LLM. This is extremely similar to the out-of-the-box Perplexity experience you would get from the web browser. So I'll just ask it, what are the best trail running shoes? And I'll go ahead and type that in, and you can see that it gives a very, very similar experience answer to Perplexity. It almost basically they're using this browser to run on top of Perplexity. Really, here's the kind of LLM driven answer. The only main difference I see is these kind of like three blue links here at the top that do link to more traditional web style results. So if I go here and compare it to a similar result in the web browser, here you can see it's a very similar result, basically just without those three blue links. But the tabs remain the same, the general experience remains very similar, the related questions. So very, very similar experience overall here. Here I did like Philadelphia restaurants. Same type of thing. One of the new features here is like when you click a new tab, if you did a search, right? So I just said, best running shoes instead of like a traditional Google search, that's actually going to pull up a new LLM chat, right? So anytime you like open up a new tab, that's going to open up a new chat experience. It's going to direct you to Perplexity's LLM as opposed to something like Google search. So that is one difference, is the new tab experience will open up, and basically your experience is going to be formed by the base results of Perplexity. So that is somewhat new compared to like a traditional web browser. Another interesting thing is that it can basically run off your history. So it can basically run the LLM on top of your web history. So here I'll go to some of my history here, and I can show my full history. Like obviously it's going to keep track of your full history, like everything you've browsed in the past. Well, it can use that in the LLM. So if I go back to like my trail running shoes example, I can say, what are the best options of those I've looked at? It's actually going to run on top of your web history and then like give you an answer based on that. So it says, hey, here's the open tabs, here's what you've looked at, here's recently closed, here's like some of the shoes that you've looked at in the past, and based on the things you reviewed, here's our recommendations. That is different too. It's like obviously LLMs will run off like the context. Now it's going to run off your entire search history, right? So like anything time you browse something, that's going to be data that the LLM can then use to give you a more personalized response later. So that's big. That's something I would expect in a lot of these LLMs, is like the ability to run on top of your history and really give you customized options based on you. Something else that's interesting is if you do open up web articles, there is this like assistant tab over here, and you can kind of do different things with it, right? This tab right here will automatically like summarize the current web page. So it'll basically run the LLM on top of whatever page you're currently browsing. So it's going to run through, analyze like key points, and here give you basically like a short LLM driven synopsis of whatever was on the web page. So this might even make the web page experience even less important for an LLM browser. It's like basically you're using it to and run the LLM on top of whatever web page you're browsing to really get the information that you're exactly looking for, as opposed to having to read the whole article. So that's something that's interesting in terms of like structuring your content. Think about if users are summarizing your content, what they would want to be summarizing here as well. Here you can run the assistant to like even more kind of like custom on top of it. So you can ask it different questions. So what are the most recommended brands? So you can ask it custom questions about it and not just summarization, and the assistant will once again run on top of the current web page content and answer questions you might have about that content. Once again, so you're not reading it, you're actually just using the content to inform user questions. So that's going to be big for how a lot of the SEOs and marketers want to structure their content, is thinking about like, hey, how can I make this comprehensive, and like what are the questions users are going to ask about my content, and how can I ensure that I have all that content directly in my page, so when a user asks a question, it's going to answer the question comprehensively via the LLM. So that's important, especially if we see users are using this assistant feature. So those are a few takeaways. It's going to provide a much more personalized experience. It's going to allow you to run on top of the current history. It's going to actually provide these assistant type of features where it's actually going to summarize your content. However, other than that, is very, very similar to the traditional like LLM results that you're getting on top of Perplexity. It's basically a browser that runs on top of Perplexity and uses it when you make a new search. So really interesting. I'll keep playing around with this as we get more examples, but super interesting in terms of like getting access to an LLM browser, and we'll see if Google, OpenAI kind of have similar functionalities as they get rolled out as well.